Imagine a country that went from being ravaged by war, divided by ideological forces, and crushed under colonial rule, to becoming one of the most advanced and influential nations on the planet. That's the story of South Korea, a nation born from conflict, driven by resilience and shaped by the unyielding spirit of its people. But how did South Korea get to where it is today? What forces shaped its history, and how did it overcome monumental obstacles to rise as a global powerhouse? From ancient kingdoms to the ravages of war, from colonial oppression to fierce independence movements, South Korea's journey is a tale of struggle and triumph that continues to captivate the world. In this video, we'll take you through the incredible story of South Korea's formation, a journey through history that shaped a nation into the modern-day success story we know. Stay tuned to discover how this small, divided peninsula became a leader in technology, culture, and economic power, and why its incredible transformation continues to inspire millions around the globe. Chapter 1. The Beginnings. Ancient Korea. The history of Korea stretches back thousands of years, with ancient kingdoms that laid the foundation for its rich culture, language, and traditions. Early Korea was home to powerful states such as Goryeo and Silla, which played vital roles in shaping what we now know as Korea today. One of the earliest known kingdoms in Korea was Goguryeo, 37 BCE, 668 CE, which became a dominant force in the northern part of the peninsula and even expanded into parts of modern-day China. It was an empire that emphasized military strength and governance, leaving behind a legacy of rich culture and art. The Silla Kingdom, 57 BCE, 935 CE, located in the southeast, was another powerful kingdom known for its sophisticated social structure, advanced architecture, and contributions to Korean Buddhism. While these kingdoms often clashed in battle, there was also a deep cultural exchange between them. The kingdoms shared ideas, technologies, and even religious beliefs, such as the introduction of Buddhism from China, which had a profound influence on Korean society. As a result, Korea began to form a distinct cultural identity that blended elements from both China and Japan, as well as its own unique customs. Korea's geographical location between two powerful neighbors, China to the west and Japan to the east, made it a strategic prize for many empires. According to historian Kim Cho-young, this position influenced much of Korea's early history, as its rulers constantly had to navigate complex relationships with both China and Japan. The Korean Peninsula's long history was shaped by invasions, alliances, and constant cultural exchanges. Yet through it all, Korea managed to maintain a unique identity, holding on to its distinct language, culture, and traditions that continue to influence its people today. Chapter 2. The Rise of Japan and Colonial Rule. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Japan had evolved from a secluded island nation into a major imperial power. The country's rapid modernization and military expansion made it a dominant force in East Asia. Japan's growing influence soon began to encroach on its neighbors, especially Korea. In 1910, Japan annexed Korea, officially incorporating it into the Japanese Empire. This move marked the beginning of 35 years of harsh colonial rule that would shape the trajectory of the Korean people for generations. The annexation came after years of growing pressure, as Korea had already been forced into unequal treaties with Japan, and Japan had taken advantage of internal political instability within Korea. Under Japanese rule, Korea faced widespread repression. The Korean language was forbidden in schools and public life, as Japan sought to erase the Korean identity and replace it with Japanese customs and culture. According to historian James B. Pillay, the cultural suppression was systematic and aimed at making Koreans more Japanese in appearance, behavior, and spirit. Koreans were forced to adopt Japanese names, and many aspects of their heritage, including art and religious practices, were heavily restricted. The Korean economy was heavily exploited during this period. Japanese industries controlled key resources including land, minerals, and labor. Koreans were often subjected to forced labor, working in factories, mines, and military installations, both within Korea and in Japan itself. Many were conscripted to work under brutal conditions, while others were recruited to serve in the Japanese military. The exploitation of Korea's resources and people led to widespread poverty and suffering. Despite this harsh reality, Korea's sense of national identity remained strong. Resistance movements began to form both within Korea and among Koreans abroad. The March 1st movement of 1919, a major uprising against Japanese rule, was one of the first large-scale demonstrations of resistance, demanding Korean independence. While the movement was violently suppressed, it fueled a growing desire for self-determination that would continue to shape Korea's path forward. The Japanese colonial period left a profound and lasting impact on Korea. It forged a deep sense of nationalism and pride in the face of repression. The legacy of Japanese rule contributed to the strong independence movements that eventually led to Korea's liberation in 1945 and played a significant role in shaping the modern-day ambitions and struggles of the Korean people. The scars of this era, both cultural and economic, continue to influence South Korea today, and the collective memory of resistance against oppression remains a key part of the nation's identity. Chapter 3: World War II and the End of Japanese Rule. As the world emerged from the devastation of World War II in 1945, one of its most significant consequences for Korea was the end of Japan's 35-year colonial rule. Japan's defeat in the war marked a turning point as the empire's imperial ambitions crumbled. For Korea, this was the moment they had long awaited, the end of harsh Japanese control that had suppressed their culture and exploited their resources. However, the liberation of Korea was not as simple as restoring its independence. Instead of returning to a unified and sovereign nation, Korea found itself caught in a new geopolitical struggle. The Korean Peninsula, once a single nation with a shared culture and history, was divided along the 38th parallel, a line that would forever separate the country into two distinct halves. This division wasn't just about geography, it was about ideology. With the end of the war, two global superpowers, the Soviet Union and the United States, emerged as dominant forces. As tensions between these superpowers escalated during the Cold War, they began to exert influence over the Korean Peninsula. The Soviet Union, a communist powerhouse, took control of the northern part of Korea, while the United States, a champion of democracy and capitalism, took responsibility for the southern half. According to historian Bruce Cummings, this division was deeply rooted in the ideological struggle between communism and capitalism, which would soon become the defining conflict of the Cold War era. The Soviets began to establish a communist regime in the north, while the United States supported the creation of a democratic government in the south. This division set the stage for a profound ideological battle that would have lasting consequences. As both superpowers entrenched their influence, the dreams of a united Korea became more distant. The Cold War's ideological divide was now physically marked by a heavily militarized border that separated the communist north from the capitalist south. This division would ultimately lead to the formation of two very different nations. North Korea, under the leadership of Kim Il-sung, became a communist state, while South Korea, led by Syngman Rhee, adopted a democratic system. The stage was set for a turbulent future, with tensions between the two regions escalating into a full-blown conflict just a few years later. Chapter 4: The Division of Korea. The birth of two Koreas. In 1945, with the end of World War II and Japan's defeat, Korea's fate took a dramatic turn. The once unified Korean Peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel, with Soviet forces occupying the north and American forces taking control of the south. This division was initially intended to be temporary, a practical measure to manage the immediate post-war situation, while the Allied powers decided on Korea's future. Both the Soviet Union and the United States agreed that Korea would eventually be unified under a single government, but this plan quickly unraveled as the Cold War tensions between the two superpowers grew. The ideological divide between communism, led by the Soviets, and democracy, supported by the Americans, deepened. According to historian William Stuick, This escalating rivalry between the Soviet Union and the United States led to a hardening of the division, with each superpower seeking to shape Korea in their own image. By 1948, what was meant to be a temporary division became permanent. Two separate governments were established. In the north, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea (DPRK), under the leadership of Kim Il-sung, was backed by the Soviet Union and embraced communism. In the south, the Republic of Korea (ROK), led by Syngman Rhee, was supported by the United States and adopted a capitalist democratic government. This marked the formal creation of two Koreas, each with its own political, economic, and cultural identity, influenced by the foreign powers backing them. The division of Korea wasn't just political, it also became a cultural divide. In the north, the communist government implemented a society shaped by Soviet ideals, where collectivism, state control, and loyalty to the regime were emphasized. In contrast, the South, influenced by American ideals, developed a capitalist economy, democratic institutions, and a strong emphasis on individual freedoms. This split created two distinct national identities, each drawing on its respective foreign influence. This rivalry between the two Koreas became the central theme of Korean history throughout the 20th century. As the two nations grew further apart, each developed its own unique path, one marked by authoritarianism and isolation in the north, and democracy and economic growth in the south. The division set the stage for decades of tension, culminating in the Korean War and continuing to affect the political landscape of the Korean Peninsula to this day. Chapter 5: The Korean War, a nation torn apart. The division of Korea was anything but peaceful. As tensions between the communist North and the democratic South deepened, the already fragile situation quickly escalated into full-scale conflict. In 1950, the Korean War erupted when North Korea, led by Kim Il-sung, launched a military invasion of South Korea. The goal was clear: to reunify the peninsula under a single communist government, following the ideological path set by the Soviet Union. The South, however, was not willing to surrender its sovereignty. The United States, along with other United Nations forces, immediately intervened to support South Korea. Their mission was not just to defend the South, but to stop the spread of communism throughout Asia, a key aspect of the broader Cold War. The intervention was a turning point, marking the first significant military engagement between the two Cold War superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, even though neither directly fought one another. For the next 3 brutal years, the war ravaged the Korean Peninsula. Cities and towns were destroyed, and both sides endured immense losses. Estimates suggest that around 3 million people died during the conflict, with millions more wounded or displaced. As the fighting raged on, it became clear that neither side would be able to achieve a decisive victory. The war turned into a bloody stalemate, with the front lines shifting back and forth, but no clear winner emerging. The human toll was staggering. Families were torn apart, as civilians found themselves caught in the crossfire. The conflict left deep scars on both Koreas, emotionally, physically, and economically. According to Bruce Cummings, the devastation of the war left both Koreas shattered, yet resilient, as both sides had suffered deeply, yet remained steadfast in their resolve. In 1953, after years of grueling combat, the war finally ended not with a peace treaty, but with an armistice agreement. The 38th parallel remained the dividing line, but the conflict had never truly ended. While a ceasefire was declared, the two Koreas continued to exist as separate states, with no formal peace ever achieved. The heavily fortified border between North and South Korea, the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, stands to this day as a reminder of the unresolved tensions and the deep division that still characterizes the peninsula. Chapter 6: Post-war. South Korea, rebuilding and growth. After the devastating Korean War, South Korea found itself in ruins. Its cities were leveled, infrastructure destroyed, and millions of people had lost their lives. The country faced enormous challenges: poverty, political instability, and a fractured society. Yet, despite these overwhelming hardships, South Korea began its slow journey of recovery. The rebuilding process was heavily supported by American aid, which flowed into the country as part of the broader U.S. efforts to prevent the spread of communism in Asia. With this financial assistance and a sense of national resilience, South Korea slowly started to rebuild its economy and infrastructure. The leadership of Syngman Rhee, the country's first president, played a crucial role in this early recovery phase. Under his leadership, the government focused on securing stability and improving living conditions. However, real transformation came in the 1960s and 1970s, a period of radical political and economic change. In 1961, a military coup led by Park Chung-hee took control of the government, and despite the authoritarian nature of his rule, Park's leadership proved pivotal for South Korea's economic rise. His regime implemented policies that encouraged industrialization and infrastructure development, setting the stage for what would later be called the Miracle on the Han River. Park's economic vision was built on the belief that heavy industry and exports would fuel South Korea's growth. He established government-controlled economic plans, directing resources into key sectors like steel, shipbuilding, and manufacturing. One of his major contributions was the rise of giant conglomerates known as chaebols, such as Samsung, Hyundai, and LG, which grew to dominate the economy. These companies would later become some of the largest corporations in the world, and their success helped fuel South Korea's rapid industrialization. During this time, South Korea made significant strides in education and technology, laying the groundwork for its future as a global leader in innovation. The country's shift from an agricultural society to an industrialized one was astonishing, with manufacturing becoming the backbone of the economy. This period of growth was not just about economic success, it was also about national pride, as South Koreans saw their country emerge from the devastation of war to become an economic powerhouse in just a few decades. By the 1980s, South Korea had transformed into a highly industrialized nation, and its rapid economic growth made it one of the world's leading economies. This period of growth, driven by strategic planning, industrial development, and an emphasis on education, is considered one of the most impressive economic transformations in modern history. The Miracle on the Han River not only reshaped the country's economy but also its global standing, turning South Korea into a symbol of resilience and progress. Chapter 7. South Korea's Transition to Democracy. The 1980s were a decade of significant change for South Korea, as the country moved from decades of military dictatorship toward a more democratic political system. For much of the post-war period, South Korea had been ruled by authoritarian regimes, with military leaders holding power through coups and suppressing opposition. The country's rapid economic growth had masked the deep political tensions brewing beneath the surface, but by the 1980s, the desire for democracy was too strong to ignore. The catalyst for change came with a wave of pro-democracy protests that spread across the country. Students, workers, and ordinary citizens took to the streets, demanding an end to the military dictatorship. The most significant moment in this movement came in 1987, when the June Democracy Movement forced the government to take action. In response to growing pressure and violent clashes between protesters and security forces, the authoritarian regime agreed to hold South Korea's first direct presidential elections. This marked the beginning of the country's transition to democracy. The 1987 elections were a turning point in South Korea's political history, as they allowed the people to choose their leader for the first time in decades. Although the election process was still limited, it paved the way for future democratic reforms. This shift from military rule to democratic governance was a powerful symbol of the country's growing commitment to freedom and civil rights. In 1988, another pivotal moment arrived: the Seoul Olympics. The event not only showcased South Korea's remarkable transformation from a war-torn and divided nation to a modern, thriving society, but it also introduced South Korea to the world as a global player. The Olympics served as a symbol of South Korea's political and economic rebirth, highlighting the country's newfound stability, modernization, and openness to the world. For South Korea, the 1988 Olympics were more than just a celebration of athletic achievement. They were a demonstration of the nation's resilience and a clear signal to the world that South Korea had emerged from its tumultuous past as a vibrant democracy. By the end of the decade, South Korea had firmly established itself as both a democratic nation and an economic powerhouse, laying the foundation for its modern role on the global stage. The journey from dictatorship to democracy was hard-fought, but it marked the beginning of a new chapter in South Korea's history. Chapter 8: Modern South Korea, a global powerhouse. Today, South Korea stands as a shining example of transformation and resilience. Once devastated by war and division, it has emerged as a highly developed nation, known for its technology, culture, and economic influence. The country's rise to global prominence in just a few decades is nothing short of extraordinary, and its success story continues to captivate the world. South Korea is home to global giants like Samsung, LG, and Hyundai, which dominate industries ranging from electronics to automotive manufacturing. These companies have become symbols of South Korea's technological prowess, pushing the boundaries of innovation and driving the country's economy forward. In fields like semiconductors, smartphones, and automobiles, South Korea has positioned itself at the forefront of global competition. Samsung, for example, is one of the largest producers of smartphones and consumer electronics worldwide, while Hyundai has become a leading global car manufacturer. Beyond technology, South Korea has also become a cultural force to be reckoned with. The rise of K-pop, Korean drama, and Korean cinema has turned South Korean culture into a global phenomenon. With groups like BTS and Blackpink dominating international charts, K-pop has captivated audiences worldwide, spreading South Korean culture to every corner of the globe. Korean dramas, known for their unique storytelling and emotional depth, have found massive audiences on streaming platforms like Netflix, bringing millions of new fans to Korean culture. Korean cinema has also gained international recognition, with films like Parasite, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2020, showcasing the country's ability to produce high-quality, globally resonant content. These cultural exports have not only elevated South Korea's global influence, but have also helped bridge cultural divides, uniting people from diverse backgrounds through entertainment. In addition to its cultural and technological achievements, South Korea is known for its remarkable education system and high standards of living. Education is highly valued in South Korea, and its students consistently rank among the top in global assessments. The country's commitment to innovation, research, and development has made it a leader in areas such as artificial intelligence and green technology. However, despite all its achievements, South Korea's division from North Korea remains a source of ongoing tension. While South Korea has embraced democracy and capitalism, the North remains under the rule of an authoritarian regime, adhering to a very different set of values and policies. The border between the two Koreas, the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, is the most heavily militarized in the world, serving as a constant reminder of the unresolved conflict that still lingers. This division, coupled with the stark differences in political systems and worldviews, continues to shape the relationship between the two countries. While South Korea looks outward, building strong ties with nations across the world, the North remains isolated, further intensifying the contrast between the two Koreas. Despite these ongoing challenges, South Korea's incredible transformation from a war-ravaged nation to one of the world's leading economies is a testament to the resilience, innovation, and determination of its people. Today, South Korea stands as a global powerhouse in technology, culture, and economics, shaping the future on the world stage while still navigating the complexities of its division from the North. Conclusion: a nation's journey of resilience. The story of South Korea's formation is nothing short of extraordinary, a tale filled with struggle, resilience, and triumph. From its ancient beginnings to its modern-day status as a global powerhouse, South Korea has been shaped by both external forces and internal strength. The country's remarkable journey from war and division to peace and prosperity stands as a powerful testament to the unwavering determination of its people. Throughout its history, South Korea has faced overwhelming challenges, from the devastation of Japanese colonial rule to the horrors of the Korean War and the ongoing division from North Korea. Yet, through each trial, the Korean people have shown incredible resilience, refusing to give up on their dreams of a brighter future. With each setback, they've found ways to rebuild and move forward, whether through military dictatorship or the eventual shift toward democracy. South Korea has always risen to meet its challenges head-on. Today, the country stands as a global powerhouse, known for its technology, culture, and economic influence. Its success in fields like electronics, automotive manufacturing, and pop culture showcases how far it has come from its war-ravaged past. Yet, this transformation is not just about economic achievement. It's about the resilience of a nation that has defied the odds, rebuilt itself, and created a thriving society from the ashes of conflict. South Korea's history serves as both an inspiration and a reminder of the immense challenges it has faced. The nation's success is not just a product of its past, it is the culmination of the hopes and dreams of a people who never gave up, no matter how difficult the road ahead seemed. As we look at South Korea today, we see more than just a modern, prosperous nation. We see a testament to the strength of its people and their unyielding desire to succeed, overcome hardship, and shape a better future for generations to come.